In this lesson we're going to paint tulips, but before we paint the flowers we'll do some leaf studies. So we'll mix some greens. I'll start off with a yellowish green with the cadmium and a small amount of the tropical phthalo blue. Tiny amount of red, just to dull it slightly. Barely noticeable, but it just calms the green down a little bit if it's too bright. And a darker green, that's mostly the tropical phthalo blue. Small amount of cadmium yellow and a small amount of red, permanent rose. So we'll do some sweeping brush strokes. Sometimes you might find it easier to turn your paper around or to change the angle of your paper or your brush. Sometimes, some people find it easier to do a brush stroke upwards and others doing it downwards or even sideways, so you turn your paper around. And some of the leaves on tulips are quite broad, nice point to them. Nice smooth brush stroke like that. That's something you can practice. So I'll do another one of that. I'll do a stem first of all, and then a leaf. And when that's dried, I'll separate the stem from the leaf. Let's do another one. And then we'll have a stem in front of that. This one is going to be bent. Looks a bit strange now, but when there's darker colour on, that'll help a lot. That's all dried now, so we'll give those shapes some form by adding darker colour and by lifting out. The last shape I painted, this folded over leaf or bent leaf, I put a little bit of darker colour underneath there, and then soften the bottom edge with a damp brush. Wants to be damp, not wet, and then blend that darker colour into the rest of the leaf. So we've got the underside of the leaf darker, the top of it lighter. And we can accentuate the light by lifting out a little bit of colour as well, just at the top. We can also lift some colour out of the middle of the stems to make them look rounded. Or we can wet the stem just with water and drop in a little bit of darker colour down one side. So this right hand side's in shadow. Another way of doing that is to paint the light green first of all, and while it's damp put a little bit of darker green in before it has a chance to dry. So it has a light side and a dark side. course, the shadow doesn't have to be on the right as I've painted it. It just depends on the light where the flower is. On the leaves, we've got some darker green here, and I want this leaf to look as if it's concave. And I'll wet the leaf first of all and drop in some of the darker colour. So water on first, trying not to go over the edge into the white paper. And while that's damp, before that has a chance to dry, drop in the darker colour. And blend that in a little bit. So that helps the leaf to look as if it goes in where it's darker and slightly out where it's lighter. Here I've got a stem in front of a leaf, so I want to separate the two. First of all, I'll put some highlight on the stem by lifting out with the flat brush. I'll let that dry a minute, and then I'll darken the leaf either side of the stem. I'll do the same one on this one too. Get rid of the paint onto some tissue and just go over it again until the paint comes off. That's fine. Little bit of highlights on the edge of that leaf and on the edge of that one. So that turns something which was flat before into something three-dimensional, just by altering the tone. And darker colour down there, and with a damp brush soften the hard edge, and the same underneath, so the stem stands out light against the dark leaf. The other way of doing it is to wet the leaf first of all, only up to the stem, and then drop the dark colour in while that's damp. And the same on the other side. Wet it first of all and drop the dark colour in. And there we are. All those studies I did before are now going to be applied practically to a small tulip painting. First of all, a little bit of drawing. A tulip's quite a nice shape to do. It's not too complicated. I'm going to have this at a very slight angle, not too upright. Just gone over a little bit where I didn't want to. That's better. Then the stem, straightening out a little bit. Fairly tall leaf. Another one on the other side. I'll make this a little bit flatter.